Boy, oh boy, are we off to a fantastic start on the search for the national team coach. I guess it couldn't start any other way. The way it's been going now for a few months, in embarrassment. Welcome to episode number 36 of the Colombia Soccer Pod. My name is Juan Pimiento. You can follow me, as you can see on the screen, at Pimiento Football. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday episode, and we're down to the bare bones. I'm down to a pair of headphones, a computer, a desk, and a chair. That's what happens when you are on the move. By the time we join you next week, I will be in a different place, coming away from a different place. So yeah, I'm on the move, and there's and that's all we got. But we're here. We're here, and we're here on a week that left us with plenty to talk about. That is for sure. So we're here to talk about it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you're doing so via Facebook, via YouTube, or via Twitter, thank you again. Or if you're doing so as well via podcast. Remember, the audio of the show goes to our podcast channels right after the show. So you can subscribe there as well. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast, you can get the Colombia Soccer Pod, and you can always participate. Colombia Pod at gmail.com. And here we are. Again, episode number 36. In what I was hoping that it would be an episode that wouldn't come until later on, a little bit later on in the process. You know, I came on here about, what is now? About a month ago. The fiasco that was the elimination of Colombia's men's national team from the World Cup. And I said, look, I hope that I don't have to talk about this for a little bit. You know, I don't want to have to do every week basically a speculation show with the different names. And we've heard plenty of names bandied about on who's going to be the next coach of the national team. And I kind of avoided it because, again, it's all speculation. I don't want to fall into the trap of thinking of names or talking about names where it's going to lead us nowhere. You know, in this process of finding the next men's national team coach, I really wanted to make sure that we brought you concrete information. We have concrete information now. In the last 48 hours, we've had a plenty of discussion about this new process of the national team because for the first time since that fateful night in Venezuela, we heard from the authority in Colombian soccer, for good or for bad. You know, whether we like it or not, he's the authority, Ramon Yesurun, the president of the Colombian Soccer Federation. And yeah, he dropped a few nuggets of information, but boy, oh boy, did he drop a few bombs that shook up the entire soccer world in Colombia. Has a lot of people still talking to this day because he's been talking again for the last 2 days about this. And man, oh boy, did it leave you with a sense that this is still going nowhere fast, unfortunately. Let's break it in a little bit. So let's start with the less offensive stuff, if you will. Let's start with the things that, again, were nuggets of information that'll give us a little bit of an insight on the process. Now, again, first time Jesurun spoke. This is coming off the heels of what was yesterday the official coming of terms, I guess. You know, the official departure of Reinaldo Rueda as the coach of the men's national team. And yes, you're thinking the same thing I was thinking. Now it's official. It took this long for him to finally leave. It should have happened on the first day. Yeah. And I said it at the time. It should have happened on the first day that Colombia were eliminated. Rueda should have handed his resignation, or the Federation should have said, you know what? You didn't get the job done. Goodbye. Thank you so much. Yes, that's how it should have been. It wasn't. It wasn't. It took us about a month for the coach to finally get its outcome, its due outcome, after failing to take us to the World Cup. Rueda is ousted formally. Then Yesurun addresses the situation now. So these are the things that he said about the hiring, because again, been a lot of concern about and worry, knowing what happened the first time, or not the first time, but the previous time, if you will, the search for the coach before the process to Qatar 2022, and how that went. Because let's not forget, when Jose Pekerman leaves, it took the Colombian Federation about 6-7 months, just about, to find a new coach. They didn't. I guess, yeah, they wasted. From a sporting sense, they wasted an entire half year looking for a coach. But in turn, of course, they saved themselves half a year of a pretty hefty salary. On the question about when the new hire could be made now, the hire for the coach, hopefully, who can take us back to a World Cup in 2026, when the World Cup comes here to North America, the US, Canada, and Mexico, he said, that we can't know. The idea is to do it as soon as possible, but we have to do it without any hurry. Whatever the name is, it'll awaken controversy. But what we'll try to do starting today, and this would have been yesterday, on Monday, or on Tuesday, I'm sorry, on Tuesday, is that the search of the person we consider is the ideal one for the process. He also spoke about whether the hire would be made after the World Cup, if they're gonna actually wait. And this would be even longer, because Colombia were eliminated in March, so it would be 8 months until the World Cup, maybe 9 until the end of the year when the World Cup is over, to make the hire. And Desurun said it's a dilemma that exists, but we can't limit ourselves to waiting until the World Cup. It's encouraging. We're gonna try to do it as soon as possible, but with calm and with a lot of studying. If the circumstances determine it, we will wait until the World Cup, but it's not what we have in mind. So yeah, he left the door open. When I read that line, if circumstances require or demand, I'm like, oh my God, no, that is his out. That is his out. It's like when we said with the coaches, right? Abrió el paraguas. He's already making excuses. If God forbid Colombia wait until after this World Cup, we're in for another disaster. Colombia don't have a game, a match, an official match. Pretty sure. I mean, and we'll see what happens, because again, we have a lot of plenty of years. Teams are already announcing games in preparation for the World Cup. Will Colombia play? It's going to be this summer, mostly this summer, in the fall. Any friendlies before that? Who knows? We haven't heard zero. We've heard zilch about Colombia maybe playing in a friendly uh, proud to this World Cup. So being a sparring partner, and this is so weird, just even saying it, and so sad. Uh, Prior to the World Cup. So we don't know. We don't know. I mean, if we do, I don't want to see again another Arturo Reyes situation in which he coaches a bunch of friendlies leading to nowhere, because the guy managing is not going to be the guy managing the team for the long haul. So what's the point? What's really the point? So I really hope that what Yesurun said is true, and that they can actually hire someone as soon as possible. Now, on who it could be, the profile, he says. Ideally, it is to look for a person, hopefully specialized in our national teams, even though someone had to have a first time, of course. Soccer is not one, and the nationality could be any. That's something I also want to touch upon, because I I've said it before on this podcast, especially when the Reinaldo Rueda hire was in the process. I said, look, we're beyond the debate of national team coach or national coach, foreign coach. It doesn't matter. The coach could be from anywhere. What matters is that it is someone who is a right fit for this team under the circumstances. In the middle of qualifiers, Colombia had been um, had been battered in Quito, 6-1. It's not the situation we have now, in which Colombia are starting or trying to start fresh, the entire process anew after being eliminated from the World Cup. It's something different. So is not the same compared to speaking to what happened with Rueda, which allows the team, again, more room to look, a bigger pool, if you will, a bigger universe from which to choose a coach, the ideal coach. And it also allows the Federation to hire someone who can leave a bigger mark, to have an entire process, top down. I'm talking from senior team to youth teams, the entire process. They can revamp it, they can retool it, they can redesign it if they want to. So for something uniform. That's what we want. That's what I want. I want a process. Someone who can actually have a destination, a plan, a thorough plan, and who can actually, whose style can fit on the team as far as the pool of players that we have. We know who they are. Again, most of the players that we saw on the road to Qatar are going to be there on the road to the North American World Cup in 2026. Let's not kid ourselves. There's not going to be that much turnover in the squad. I talked about the fact that, okay, maybe Falcao could be on the outs, and James could be on the outs, and Cuadrado could be on the outs. Those players, yeah, but everybody else, the pool is pretty established, and most players are going to be hitting their prime come 2026, their prime years, at least their late 20s. So a coach that can actually work with players who are more established and who can bring in the younger players, the Yasser Asprillas and the Tomas Angel and Jason Mosqueras, and those players who are going to be filtering in as time comes and they're still young. So again, bringing in new players, Jorge Carrascal, those types of players who can come in new, who are not or have not really been part of the process, but who will be, of course, expected to do so in the coming years. The names, again, have been bandied about. We heard names of all kinds: Marcelo Bielsa, Ricardo Gareca, Marcelo Gallardo, Renato Portaluppi. We've heard all kind of names. One that kind of came up lately was Gustavo Alfaro, actually. So the Ecuador coach, the coach who took Ecuador back to a World Cup on a very impressive campaign, now going with Ecuador to the World Cup in Qatar, he kind of was thrown in there. So they shouldn't answer questions about three specific cases. One of them is Marcelo Bielsa, a guy who here I've talked about before. On Bielsa, he said that there's nothing on Bielsa. Nothing is true. There's no contact with Bielsa, and there never was. He's a very serious person. We haven't made any contact with any managers. Keep that in mind. All alternatives are possible. There is no agenda that is directed to choosing or discarding anyone specifically. There is no veto as far as nationalities. To me, I've always liked the work of the Colombian coach. Look, as long as, again, they don't close in on nationalities or anything like that, I'm perfectly okay. Now, on Gareca and Alfaro, who, let's not forget, they're under contract. Diaz is a free agent. Gareca and Alfaro are under contract with Peru and Ecuador. And I mean, in their cases, Peru could be going to the World Cup. If they're facing the playoff, Ecuador is going to the World Cup. So, on that regard, Jesurun said, we don't have any names. In Alfaro's case, I want to be clear. It is totally false. He has a contract with a federation. Same with Ricardo Gareca. That rumor is absolutely false. There are no names, no candidates. Although there are 30,000 calls from agents who they say have the ideal coach for us. Again, I'm not really sold on either choice. Of course, Alfaro is a trendy name, of course, because of what he just did with Ecuador. It's hard to see number one, Alfaro leaving, choosing to leave Ecuador after the World Cup, barring something, of course, unforeseen. Gareca is more likely. And Gareca is also a name that was mentioned 4 years ago, of course, in the post-Peckerman days. He was also bandied about because, and his future in Peru was a little bit uncertain. He ended up, of course, renewing with Peru. Now he's again on the verge of taking them to a second consecutive World Cup in Qatar. If you ask me right now, again, of the names that I've heard about, I still maintain that to me, the ideal coach today is Marcelo Bielsa. And yes, I know the devil's advocates out there are gonna say, "Oh, what has he won? What trophies does he have?" And yes, he hasn't won much. He hasn't won much, but for the situation and the context, and national team, as you know, is very different from a club. Colombia right now, and I said it at the time a month ago, we need someone who can shake this up bad, someone who can turn the men's national team process structure on its head, and someone who can do that, and who would only come to Colombia, by the way, if he's allowed to do that, full control of the senior and the youth teams, is Marcelo Bielsa, and I trust in him um, that he can do that, and that he can bring a group, he can unify a group, of course, with common values, with a structure, tactically and off the field as well. I think he can be an ideal guy. I think he's someone also who, again, can give this this federation direction, because as much as Jesurun might say that there's been work and that Rueda worked with the youth teams going to practices, and Queiroz did so too, by the way. Uh, there is no uniformity in the structure. So I want someone again who can bring uniformity, universality to the structure from the top to the bottom, because as much as we need someone for the senior team, I think the youth teams can use someone as well. And we don't know yet where the youth teams are, because they haven't played, really. They haven't played in a while. Let's not forget that the youth teams had their tournaments canceled because of the pandemic last year. So we don't even know where things stand with the under 20s, with the under 17s. We have an idea where they are with the under 23s, uh, but that was also, I mean, we're talking 3 years ago. The team that failed to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics in 2019 on home soil. So, yeah, we're ripe for a revamp, for direction, for something that is more structured and that can produce something for the now and for the long term. I think Bielsa is the guy. For the record, I want to hear from you though. Let me know in the comment section via email, colombianocolumbia@gmail.com. Who do you think should be the coach? Is it someone who I listed there? Bielsa, Gallardo, Alfaro, Gareca, Portalupi, Abel Ferreira, maybe the Palmeiras coach. Um, who would you want? Who would you want? I guess we can kind of expand it and say, if money was no factor, even though it is, because Colombia ain't rich, they're not just gonna afford anyone. Who do you want? Who do you want? Let me know in the comments. Let me know via email. Now it starts getting a little bit dicey with what Jesurun said, because one of the controversies, and I talked about this as well back in the post Venezuela match. One of the controversies is that while Colombia were hoping for a miracle in Venezuela, Jesurun and a group of the board members of the Federation were already in Qatar, because within a few days, of course, was the World Cup draw. They were there while the team was sinking in a pile of garbage because of the doing of the coach and the players and the Federation. They were living the good life. In Jesurun's case, as also a board member for Conmebol, they it seemed like they moved on. He talked about this, and he said, because they're going to go to the World Cup in November. I mean, don't even question it. These guys are going to the World Cup in Qatar, and they're going to enjoy it. They're going to have a grand old time while we all watch from home. He said it. At the end of the day, this is our activity as directives, if you will. If we have to the World Cup, we must go. That the fact that we didn't go to the World Cup as a national team doesn't mean that we have to self-destroy, he said. Soccer is soccer, and people believe that us as front office people look and live soccer the same way that the fans do. That those who buy a ticket, who go and they do touristic things during the games or around the games. Us, no, this is our business. It's our homework. It's our duty. It's our obligation. And if we have to go to the World Cup, why not go? I guess no, yeah. And to end the quote, I guess why not? Sure, if you can go, go, go. I wish you would stay. I really wish you would just stay in Qatar and hand this to someone else who could actually do this. And this is where it really starts going downhill, where it starts nosediving. Is he taking any blame? Is Yesurun, the president of the Colombian Soccer Federation, taking any blame for what happened? And 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 here's something for the highlight reel. And I quote: "We're always the guilty ones. We're always the guilty party. We give everything we can to give. When we went to the World Cup twice, we weren't the best. We weren't even mentioned, and now we're the guilty ones. That is a contradiction. The Federation works on many fronts, understanding that the final or the principal product and that of the most interest is the men's senior national team. Common people, everyday people, only see the Federation's work tied to the national team, and that the product, of course, is the one that calls for attention, the one that garners the most attention. We did our homework. Logistically, we took care of business. No complaints from the head coaches. Reinaldo Rueda was thankful for the time and the support we gave him, but the objective was not achieved. One goal in any of those 7 games, talking about the scoreless games, the one that Colombia failed to score on, one goal in any of those games, and we would have qualified at least for the playoff. That is painful history, but we have to move on. So again, if you, I think if you listen to this, and you read it, of course, what do you see? A person who has no self-criticism, no introspection, nothing, nothing. So when I say that things are starting on the wrong foot, it's because how do you move on from a failure if you can't even acknowledge your own mistakes? How do you correct? How do you grow if you can't even accept and look to address your own mistakes? Rueda never did it during his time as coach. The players did. Some did, at least. The Surun isn't doing it. The blame is going everywhere. They're in lockstep. The Surun and Rueda are in lockstep as far as, the blame is on the players who didn't score, right? Those seven games. And yes, he's right in the sense that, yeah, of course, the players missed a lot of goals, and we can again go back, and I don't want to go through that trail of tears again of the goals that Colombia missed and squandered over the 7 games. And yes, any of those goals, yeah, Colombia would have made it to a playoff. We would be sitting here talking about something entirely different, probably. But the truth of the matter is that as a whole, there were failures from top to bottom. And where's the self-criticism? Where's the introspection? Where's the accepting that your duty and your work wasn't good enough? And yeah, of course, a federation is not just what happens on the field for one team. Yes, Colombia Soccer Federation manages all the men's national teams, all the women's national teams, the beach soccer teams, the futsal soccer teams, the Paralympic soccer teams. Of course, yes, yes, you're right. Yes, you do. And again, it's not just about selecting coaches and managers. Yes, it's about logistics. It's about growth and development. It's about finding sponsors who can finance your operation. Yes, I get all of that, of course, but that's not the topic at hand. That's not what we're trying to accomplish here. There was a very viral clip making the rounds on Twitter yesterday. A journalist from ESPN, and I forget his name, and I'm sorry because because this was an incredible piece of journalism in a good way, and I commend him for it. It's amazing. The reporter from ESPN basically asked him to his face. He said, you know, the if you remember in the qualifiers in Africa, right? Algeria lost in the last minute to Cameroon, and they ended up eliminated from the World Cup. A very good team, a team that honestly should have made it, and it's a shame that they're not going to be there. And but they didn't make it. They failed to qualify, and what happened afterwards? The the introspection from the Algerian front office people was to quit. They all quit on. I think that if it was the next day or the same day, the entire federation board quit. It was pretty amazing, and of course, when Colombia got eliminated, that that ended up making the rounds, right? That ended up uh, being brought up from a Colombia standpoint, saying, "How come people aren't doing this?" So yeah, I kind of agree, and I do agree that that's what should have happened, honestly. Because yes, I know that it's bigger than just what happened with the men's national team, but that is your principal product, and the product failed. So yeah, I would have quit on mass too. Teo Gonzalez is the name of the journalist, and yeah, basically he called him out, and no answer, and no answer. Pretty feisty was Jesurun. He started to get a little bit chippy on Tuesday with his with his questions, and then because of this chippiness came the absolute jewel, right? The one that everybody was talking about. He was asked about being reelected because let's not forget, and I talked about this too, in that the post Venezuela stream. Yesurum was reelected days before Colombia finalized their collapse and got eliminated from the World Cup. He actually had himself reelected before going to Qatar as president. And this is what he said about this. And I quote, at the last Federation Assembly, the real owners of soccer, the ones who decide who administers them, decided to re-elect us for 4 more years. Period. We're doing what we can, but we have the strength and the health. And yes, everybody ran, of course, with okay, it's not about the fans. The fans aren't the real owners of soccer. It's us. It's us. And boy, the people get riled up. Man, oh man, we got something to talk about. So to Mr. Yesurun, and it's funny. I love the fact that this happened. Today is the 1 year anniversary of the Super League fiasco. Remember what happened a year ago when the famous European Super League was announced, and then all but three clubs backtracked. There was a backlash, and there was a whole discussion about who does soccer belong to, the rich clubs or the fans, and everybody was up in arms. At the end of the day, the fans won that battle, and the Super League, as we know it, is dead for now. For now. But yeah, it's just so funny because now here we are in Colombia talking about how okay, Jesuruno is dismissing the fans. Like you don't own this. We own this in the federation. And when he says that the ones who elect us, yeah, the assembly is made up of all the presidents of the clubs, you know, and an executive board of people who have been in soccer, are in soccer at all levels. Quite frankly, it's an embarrassment, uh, the names and the track records of the people in the Colombian board. So much so that they re-elected Jesurun. That tells you all you need to know about the kind of people that they have and that we have running things in Colombia. And to be so arrogant, I mean, you have to be really full of yourself, and you have to be really full of crap to come out at a time where, again, we're looking for answers. We're looking to turn the tide on the men's side, while the women continue to prepare for their own big test this summer as they try to qualify for the Women's World Cup in 2023. We have the women's under 20 team trying to qualify for their World Cup, and they're going to be playing their last two matches coming soon after losing to Brazil 3-0 um, in the final round of qualifying of the women's South American under 20 team, on the 20 tournament, I should say. So while this is happening and we're trying to heal the wounds from what happened to the men, here's this guy as he's being asked about introspection, about what are you going to do? How are you going to change? And he says, you know what? I got reelected, and damn it, we're going to keep working because you don't have to say anything. You have no power. I do, and we do. It gets no more arrogant than that. And it makes me really wary. Really wary of what's going to happen because we've been through this before. Again, the process to hire Queiroz was a mess. It was a mess. Even the process to hire Peckerman, and yes, it turned out pretty well. Of course, we went to 2 World Cups, including one in which we went to a quarterfinal. But let's not forget, Yesurun was part of that process too, not as president. He was part of the board. You know, the president was Alvaro Bedoya, who is now facing legal problems, of course, because of his involvement in FIFA Gate. That process, including Marcelo Bielsa, included Gerardo Martino. They were the first choices. Bielsa was this close to coming and taking over the reins of the Colombia team, until he realized that the Federation wanted to set their own standards and their own conditions. He said no. It took going to Peckerman, who was, I think, option C, I'm pretty sure. And then they were so desperate that they had to give him the reins. Again, it worked out, but the process was pretty questionable. Queiroz, same thing. Wasted 6 months of a process that should have started right as soon as Peckerman got up from that chair in that press conference and left. That should have been it. That should have been it. Queiroz was available. He had managed Iran in the World Cup. He had left. He was there. Should have been hired right then and there. Can we trust the Federation? This guy whose quotes I just read, who's so arrogant and so full of himself that he can't even discuss his own mistakes. He can't even acknowledge them or accept them, let alone correct them. Can we trust these people to make the right choice when Colombia are looking to revive? They're looking to get back to relevance, go back to a World Cup, go back to relevance in the Copa America, because that'll be the first test, Copa America, coming in 2024. I would expect Colombia to at least make it to a semifinal like we did in Brazil, to a third place. Can the Federation hire the coach to take Colombia to a final, a Copa America final, maybe even win the title? Who knows? But at least a coach that can start something as soon as possible and take us back to a World Cup. A World Cup, by the way, that's going to have up to seven South American teams, 7 of 10. So if Colombia don't make it, boy, oh boy, are we in real trouble. Who's going to be that person? Can we trust the Federation to hire the right person? Right now, I don't think so. Do you think this guy? Do you think Jesurun's going to sit down with Marcelo Bielsa if they do it all and say, what do you want to do? Bielsa's going to tell him what he wants to do. We know that Bielsa is set on his ways. It's his way or the highway. Can we trust Jesurun to be at that table and say, here you go. Here are the keys. Take us back to a World Cup. Can we trust for him to do that with any coach? Vigareca or Alfaro or Gallardo, whoever it is. A name that we haven't even talked about maybe. Right now, honestly, I don't. I really sit here and I cringe because I cannot imagine what that process will be like. And we'll find out hopefully soon. I really hope that, Jesurun, after he gets off his high horse, in which he's been on the last couple of days, can finally start this process, start talking to coaches, and we can have someone soon. I mean, between now and summer, I would think. Between now, the next couple of months, 3-4 months at the most, that we can play friendlies, get the ball rolling, and actually get the process going and move on now on the road to the 2026 World Cup. We'll see. All we can do is hope and pray and follow along. And you can follow us along, of course, as we continue this process. We'll be here. Any news, any legitimate news. Again, I don't want to delve into too much rumor, but any legitimate news about who the next coach is going to be, we'll be here. So make sure to follow us, follow the process, and follow us as well on our social media, on Twitter at Concu Soccer Pod, Instagram Colombia Soccer Pod, YouTube Colombia Soccer Pod, Facebook The Colombia Soccer Pod, and watch us. We'll be back next Tuesday, hopefully, if the move and everything goes well. Next Tuesday, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific, right here for episode 37 of the Colombia Soccer Pod. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your comments, for participating. Again, I want to hear from you about this whole fiasco, about this whole process of who will be the next Colombia head coach. Email us, colombiana@gmail.com. And again, we'll be back next Tuesday for our next episode. Thank you for listening as well on podcast. Make sure to subscribe. Leave us a review on podcast form. Leave us your comments. Follow us, of course, Facebook, YouTube, on Twitter, so you don't miss a single episode of the Colombia Soccer Pod. And on that note, I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us. Leave us your comments. If you do, I will read them on the air. I want you to participate on this process as well, on this show. Be part of the show. So on that note, thank you again so much for joining us. My name is Juan Pimiento, and have a great rest of your night, whatever night that is for you.